great.
Now this section is called Part 2, Overseas Service.
Uh-huh.
When you first learned you were going to go overseas, what was your reaction?
Well, we knew sooner or later that we had to go overseas,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget but within Fort Bragg, and we knew pretty soon that we were being processed, getting ready to go, and that was when they informed us that we had going to be part of the 101st Airborne. And they finally put us in trains, and we headed out, and the next thing you know, it was a place called Camp Shanks, up just north of New York City on the western side of the Hudson River. And this was the processing center to men going to go overseas, and all the new medical inspections and everything that took place. And they informed us that originally we thought we'd get a couple of day furlough, and then they made up their mind that there'd be no time off or days out. We were going to be held in camp, and the next thing you know, we'd head for the ship down in New York Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was interesting. There was a lot of excitement going on, and the anticipation after all the training and what we had gone through. Let's do something, you know. In the meantime, we'd worked so hard and so long. Let's go and, you know, whatever it's for, let's do it. And I remember getting aboard the ship and all the excitement of being there.
What was the ship you guys were on?
The name of the ship was the SS Samaria.
Mm-hmm.
It was a British ship, and it was quite adjacent to the ship that had burned in the harbor. It was a French ship. Can't think of the name of it now.
The Americana or something like that? The Americana?
No,
something?
that wasn't it. This one had burned, and it was a French ship, and it was the next pier to us.
Okay.
But anyway, the next morning, the tugboats arrived and pulled us out of the dock, and we started slowly down the Hudson River. You know, we're on our way. We're on our way. And, well, we hadn't gone very far, and there was just a slight lean to the ship, to the right. And I remember saying to one of them, what happened? Why are we bent over? He said, you better go over there and look. And I went over to the side of the ship where I could look out over the side, and there was our Statue of Liberty. And we were all, so long, old girl, hope we'll see you soon. And it was sort of the last tribute to that Statue of Liberty that was down there, and so actually so precious to, you know, American, our boys and everybody that was involved with this. And it was just sort of the feeling that, boy, we hope we'd get back and see it again. Mm-hmm. And off we went and out into and they warned us that if at any time the ship is sunk in the North Atlantic, we would only have 30 minutes in the water. The water was so cold there that we would only survive for 30 minutes. So be prepared and make sure you're wearing your life preserver thing and see maybe you could get picked up. And as this process that went on, the armada kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, the number of ships. And it reached the point that no matter what direction you looked in, east, west, north, and south, there were ships. And we were informed back then that that was the largest convoy at that particular time that had crossed the North Atlantic. And it was successful. There was no problems. The one ship had problems, and they had to head up to Newfoundland or I guess up there anyway in the north to get to a port that they were having trouble. But other than that, it was a successful trip, and we landed at Liverpool, and it was just so exciting, you know. Well, at last we're here, and actually you could see the rats running up and down the lines that were from the dock to the ships. It was unreal. And well, they put us in, I guess there were buses that we got in, and took us to the little camps where we were going to head for. And we ended up in Oilbourne in England, a very quaint little village town, thatched roofs. It was picturesque. I mean, if you were to draw a picture of the way things were back then, this was it. And this was where our camp was going to be. But in the first 24 hours that we were there, we turned on whatever radios we had or communication, and here we're receiving a message from Axis Sally welcoming us to England. And we couldn't even write a letter at home and tell our folks we were in England. And here Axis Sally is welcoming us to Allborn in England. And, glad you're over here, and we'll probably see you soon. And so we tuned her in, or whatever we could get her, and we'd find out what's happening. But it was, to them, it was comical at the time, Isn't this amazing? We're hearing something from Germany, they know exactly where we are. But this little village was something very, very special. And I guess maybe the way I can look at it, I know I had to be a different guy, because there were 3 bars in that town, pubs, and where they got their fish and chips and drank their beer and whatever. I never went in one. I had never been in one.
You didn't go to any of the English
I
bars?
never went to one of those 3 little pubs that were in this small village. And that little village isn't bigger than the little village that I'm living in here. Just a small place. And I've often scratched my head, why didn't I go out? I would drink a beer or enjoy, being with the guys and all. But I actually had never gotten one of the pubs.
Now, did the Army give you any information about England before going over?
If we had received any, it's not in my memory. I just can't remember. Of course, they didn't mention that we were going to England. So the word would get out, was the 101st or the 506 is going to England. That was supposed to be a top secret at that time. It wasn't going to be Tokyo, it was going to be over to England. But that was kept very quiet as to what the destination would be, and even the landing at Liverpool was supposed to be kept quiet. That's where we were landing.
Now, you talked about how you might have gone to Tokyo. Did you have any preference on where you went? I mean, did you want to go fight Japan or Germany? Was there,
You mean as far as the combat was concerned?
Yeah, was there a preference on where the unit would end up?
No, but of course once we landed over in England, we knew it was going to be over in France or some part of the continent over there. And there had been some sort of a scare and excitement that took place not long after we got there. It was getting towards Christmas time, and we honestly thought we were getting ready to do something that was going to be different. And there was something that took place, I think, was up in Norway. It had to do with some kind of water or hard water, whatever they were manufacturing at that time.
Yeah, the raid up there.
And we often felt that because it was finally scrubbed, that they were getting us ready to jump over there and do whatever had to be done. But I guess there was some sort of a group that got in and was able to eliminate that thought.
That's what they were training the 1st Special Forces for?
Uh-huh.
You ever hear about that group between the Canadians and Americans?
Uh-huh.
There was a group of them that they were supposed to send up there, but that got scrubbed because of some covert operation or something.
Well, this is something I had never heard about, but the word, the grapevine, and there's a lot of grapevines when you're in the service as to what's going on or what's being said, and none of it true. But they were basically lining us to make that jump up in Norway.
Now, what were your impressions in England? I mean, how did you view staying in
Well,
that
after
country?
being there for a while and knowing what these people were going through, and I never heard one English person, man, woman, or child, complain about what they were living through. And getting out of Allborn and taking the train to go to London, and finding down at the subway stations in London, people by the thousands sleeping on the subway stations. That's where they went for night. That's where they spent the night because of the bombing that was coming in. And my heart went out to them. They never complained. They were strictly British and seemed to be getting along with it. And I think had they been Americans, they would have been moaning, boning, and bitching about everything that was taking place. And they had a shortage of food and seemed to be a shortage of everything. And of course the old expression, I guess, has been around for a long time about the Yanks being over here. They had the problem is, I forget, they had too much money and too much something else, and about being here, I forget where the thing went. It'll come to me. But
The
the problem with the Yanks that they're here and not there.
they're overpaid,
Overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
and then the British would respond, we're underpaid, undersexed, and under Eisenhower, something like that.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Now, how did you guys interact with the civilians? I know you said they didn't really complain, and there were shortages, but how did you interact with the civilians? Was it kind of a good relationship? Were there some tensions?
Well, here it is. It's probably me one time again. I figured they had their own private lives and everything else, and there was anything I could possibly help them with. I was ready, willing, and able to do it. But Americans being American, they can be people that you could not like. Being boring or overbearing with whatever they wanted and whatever they wanted to do, and we had more money and we can do this and we can do that. And I never became one of those people. We had a lot of them, though, that didn't cement the relationship between our nations. It was, this is what happens no matter where we go or what we do or how we do it. Can't please everybody.
Did you make any friendships over there? I mean, were there any people that you would meet on a regular basis?
No British people of any concern. I met one girl, and I can't even think of her name at the time, and she invited me to her house for Christmas celebration. Mm-hmm. And I think it's written in my scrapbook how we celebrated that Christmas, and that they had given each one a little gift, like a brush, a shaving brush, or to put the soap on your face and things of that sort. And I mentioned how meager it all was, but they seemed very happy with what they gave each other. Uh-huh. And they did give me something, and I right now I couldn't even tell you what it was, but it was very, very small, very meager, and very well appreciated, because they were going through hard times, and they did have hard times.
Now, was there any fraternizing with the women?
Say that again? Was
there any fraternizing with the women?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of fraternizing going on with the women over there. That there was an awful lot of American children born over there, and that went on all the time. And the one thing I always said, I smile about it when they got one of the guys that had ended up with a venereal disease. Where did you get it? How did this ever happen? And they were looking for a town, village, or something. He said, on a park bench. That was the answer where he got the venereal disease. I remembered that. Some of the things you remember and you wonder why.
So now how about the morale? How was the morale in the unit? Mail from home, did that impact morale, living conditions? Was there a homesickness?
No, it was a wonderful morale, except that shortly after we were there, and for several months, food was scarce. Mm-hmm. We weren't getting much food. And there was a moan and groan about what we weren't getting and what we should get and all that sort of thing. And of course, we knew the poor British and their farms and everything were basically depleted. They didn't have any surplus. And that finally cleared up. And we got the normal rations that the American soldier would have over there. But as time went on, you realize that the expression we had is why this English Isle doesn't drown or go under, because of all the equipment that's being stored on all the country roads all through England. Every road in the country had something, and I don't know who could ever kept track of where they were supplying or putting things, when they needed it, where they're going to find it. But there were not like warehouses, but great big, boxes of whatever was in them, stored all along these country roads. It was unreal.
So I'm assuming the letters from home helped your morale.
Right.
The lack of food kind of hurt it a little bit. Were there anything else that made morale go up or down?
Not that I can remember, and I think it had reached the point, and I can remember it quite distinctly. Enough of the training, because the training never ceased. let's do it. You know, this is why we came into service. We thought we would end up as combat soldiers. And if we're going to go into combat, let's get there and stop the training. We wanted no more training. We felt like we were overtrained.
Now, you talked about Axis Sally when you came over.
Yeah.
Was that a popular program? How did the propaganda affect you?
Well, any propaganda that we got from Axis Sally, you know, we just smiled at it. And isn't this amazing? You know, all this, and you know, it doesn't bother us one bit. And how are they getting the information from? And we always favored military intelligence one way or another. And we had such faith and confidence in our country that you know, they had things under control, and everything's going to work out well. I don't think we ever had the feeling of, oh man, what are we getting into? Why are we doing this? You know, we don't belong with what we're doing. We felt that we were superior to anything that we were going to run into, and let us do it and have it over.
Okay. Well, getting ready for combat, or after combat, if you will, individual replacements. How did you guys feel, especially because you guys trained, went through jump school together, and then trained in England as a unit? When you got replacements, how did you feel about them when they joined?
Hi, buddy. You're going to have to give me that question one more time, but
the replacements coming from combat when you got out of the zone, especially Normandy and
right.
Holland for a little bit. How did you feel about the replacements joining in?
About the replacements going in?
How did you feel about them coming in? Did you feel they were well trained? Were they qualified? Were they just...
Well, after Normandy is when the replacements really showed up. We did get a few replacements prior to Normandy, but they fit into the group very well, and they seemed to be well indoctrinated, and they were men that you accepted as part of our group, although they were sort of brand new. But just prior to our invasion, we made one morning, just about the break of dawn, they got us up, gave us breakfast, put us in trucks, and out we went to some field far off, I don't know where it was, and they lined us up and finally called us all to attention, and then we realized there was something special happening, and General Montgomery had just come back from Africa, and he was going to review the troops, and I remember as he came through, he stopped one man away from me. And I remember in one of my letters, I remember him stayed there and he asked this young boy some sort of a question. And I remember looking at him, and the expression I remember back then, and I have it written down, I have never seen a complexion like that on a man in my life. He had just come out of Africa, and he had the complexion of a peach. It was really, you know, remarkable to stand and have a man of his stature right in front of me, where I could really look him over carefully. And I remember that, and the only sad part about that day was they didn't have the buses to take us back to camp. We marched back to camp, which was normal for, we called Army, you know, situation normal, all screwed up. And then just prior to that, the only letter that I ever had, and I've got it here in the house, that was ever censored. And I was very careful about what I wrote in my letters, and there were people that did give the officers a lot of grief. A fellow by the name of Dave Webster gave the officers a terrible time. He wasn't about to change his way of doing things, and he was always writing things in his letter, and they got to the point where they basically, you know, blacked it all out and tried to make him change his mind. But they cut out the piece that I had put in there that we had made a night jump. And that was only a month or so before D-Day. And that was pretty important stuff at that time.
Now I'm sidetracking a little bit here. Greg has said time and time again that you have a different view on Webster than most people. I mean, what was your take on him?
Well, Webster was not one of us. He was a cut above in his mind. And
a
Webster,
Harvard boy, if you will.
Huh?
A Harvard boy, if you will.
Yeah. Well, he was a Harvard boy, and he came pretty much from the same area of New York that I came from. And I mentioned one time I went to high school very close to where he had lived, but you weren't going to impress Webster. Webster had his own viewpoint of him and anybody else. and he was going to do it his way or no way. And he just wasn't part of the gang, and never was. He was an individual, and we all felt we were individuals. We were also part of a group, and you had to be part of a group or it didn't function properly. But Webster was going to do it his way or no way, and that's part of my opinion of him. You know, and I was given a book here recently about somebody, they wrote on it, let's take a boat trip, and then it signed Webster's name on it. So,
now, talking about writers, did you observe any newspaper or war correspondence or radio war correspondence during your time in the service?
The correspondence that came in, I can't remember much or any of it. There was Ernie Pyle and stories by him and the different ones, but the war correspondence, I thought we might they might be at regimental or division headquarters more than I would see them at battalion headquarters. But we knew they were around and had things they wanted to write and say, but I never was part of it or saw any of it.
Now, what did you think of the newspapers when they were published then, and the radio? How did you view that?
You mean for the battalion or
just civilian, the wartime civilian newspapers? I'm sorry. Did you guys read any of the civilian papers?
Very, very little. Very little, unless it was some important thing that happened, or where did the bombs drop tonight on England, you know, and whatever, and when are we going to go?
Now, the military publications, did you guys read those a lot, like Stars and Stripes?
Yes, Stars and Stripes was, you know, that was good reading, and pretty much filled us in on a lot of the things that were happening or going on. And Stars and Stripes we felt was our publication that was going to tell us the way it was.
And you guys had a unit magazine, though, correct?
We have a unit press that was the 50 Sync. And then I got some copies of that, and then we came out with another, I think it was a little magazine, I think it was called The Paradise, and I've got a couple of copies of that, and pretty much was the stories or the information of what the regiment was up to. And Colonel Sink was very adamant about getting information. He wanted the men well informed, and one that I have is a picture on the front page of it. That trying to think who the company commander was in E Company. His plane went down.
Meehan?
Meehan. He had been the artist for this picture that's on the front page of that Paradise magazine. And I just happened to looking through it one day, happened to turn the page and realize that Meehan had drawn that picture that's on the front page. That's part of my memorabilia stuff over there.
Okay, well, I'll give you a little bit of a breather.
Bruce, good to see you.